My name is Amber, and I'm 34 years old. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and for the past 10 years, I've worked as a certified financial analyst. My life has been built on discipline, numbers, and sacrifice. While others spent their 20s chasing love, freedom, or adventure, I buried myself in spreadsheets and late-night emails. I didn't do it to impress anyone. I did it because I had one simple dream: to own a home of my own. Not a luxury mansion, just a warm, quiet place with a front porch and a fenced yard, a space that was mine. No roommates, no leases, no shared walls. I didn't want extravagance. I wanted permanence. 10 years of waking up before dawn, staying in the office long after others clocked out, and passing up vacations just to watch my savings grow. It wasn't easy, but by the end of last year, I had finally reached my goal, $200,000 in my account, saved penny by penny. It was enough for a down payment, closing costs, and to furnish a modest home the way I liked. I imagined soft lighting, warm colors, quiet Saturday mornings with coffee and a book. My heart would skip every time I passed charming old neighborhoods in Greenville, picturing my future tucked into one of those tree-lined streets. I had been quietly searching for months, just waiting for the right listing to appear. But then, as always, life happened. My mother, Vanessa, called me one cold February evening in tears. She and Stephen, my stepfather, were about to lose the house they'd been renting for the past 8 years. They were behind on payments, and the landlord had decided to sell. "We have nowhere to go," she sobbed. "I don't know what we're going to do." I didn't even hesitate. I told her I'd help. Not with a few $100s. I told her I'd use my savings to buy a house where they could live too. I would buy the home in my name, and they could move in with me. We'd be a family again, and I'd finally get my dream of homeownership, just not exactly the way I had pictured it. It felt like the right thing to do. My mom called me a saint. She said I was a blessing. Stephen said he was proud of the woman I'd become. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had done something that finally made me worthy in their eyes. Growing up, that wasn't always the case. My mom remarried when I was 8. Stephen came with his own son, Travis, who was 2 years older than me. From the very beginning, Travis was the golden child. He could do no wrong. I was the quiet one, the good girl, the helper. I never acted out. I never asked for anything. Maybe that was my mistake. Travis never kept a job longer than 6 months. He jumped from one business idea to another: car washes, online clothing stores, cryptocurrency scams. Each one failed more dramatically than the last. And every time he fell, my parents caught him. They gave him money. They co-signed loans. They refinanced their car. They even borrowed against their retirement fund. I watched silently, thinking if I just worked harder, maybe one day they'd see me too. So when I found the listing on Miami Street, a lovely 2-story colonial with white shutters and a spacious yard, I knew it was the one. We went to see it together, me and my parents. My mom gasped as we stepped through the front door. Stephen nodded with approval. It felt like a family moment, like maybe things were turning around. I signed the paperwork, made the down payment, and scheduled a housewarming party. We were finally going to be under one roof, safe and settled. I bought soft blankets for the couch, welcome mats, matching towels, and a little wooden sign that read, "Home is where your people are." I believed it. I wanted to believe it more than anything. The morning of the housewarming party, I woke up early, too excited to sleep. The house smelled faintly of lemon polish and new beginnings. I had placed fresh flowers in vases throughout the rooms, fluffed every pillow, and even baked banana bread, just like Mom used to do when I was a kid. I wanted everything to feel warm, inviting, like a real home. I wore a pale blue blouse and jeans, nothing fancy, but still put together. I was proud, not just of the house, but of myself. This place was proof of every missed vacation, every overtime shift, every quiet night spent at home while others were out living wild lives. It was mine. My dream finally realized. Guests started arriving around 2 in the afternoon. My best friend Jenna came early and helped me with the snacks. She'd been with me through it all, the long nights of budgeting and the days I almost gave up. She hugged me tightly. "I still can't believe you did it," she said, looking around in awe. "This place is beautiful, Amber." Her brother Justin, the real estate lawyer, was supposed to swing by later, too. He had helped look over the initial paperwork when I signed the contract and made sure everything looked solid. We hadn't filed all the final legal documents yet, but the house was clearly bought in my name. The down payment came from my account, and the agreement was crystal clear. At least, I thought it was. I was in the kitchen when it happened. Travis walked in with his wife Megan, carrying a baby gift bag and that smug expression he always wore when he thought he'd won something. He had barely said hello before Vanessa walked in behind him, clapping her hands and calling for attention. "Everyone, can I have a moment?" she said, her voice unnaturally high. I turned, thinking maybe she wanted to make a toast or say something nice. Instead, what came out of her mouth hit me like a punch to the stomach. "We're so thrilled that this home now belongs to Travis," she said, beaming with pride. "He needs a stable place for his growing family, and this is the perfect place for them to start the next chapter of their lives." I stood there, frozen, the wooden spoon still in my hand. I must have misheard her. My eyes darted to Jenna, whose face had gone pale. Guests clapped awkwardly. Travis grinned, nodding like a man who'd just inherited a fortune. Megan said something about redoing the kitchen, her voice light and excited. My heartbeat roared in my ears. "What are you talking about?" I finally asked, my voice low, stunned. My mother looked at me like I was being dramatic. "We already filed the paperwork," she said. "The house is in Travis's name now. You should feel proud. You've helped your brother take care of his family." It felt like I couldn't breathe. I looked around the room, searching for someone to say it was a joke, a misunderstanding. But no one spoke. No one stopped clapping. The house I had worked 10 years for was being handed to someone else in front of all our friends and family, like I was nothing but a silent benefactor. Stephen stood off to the side, sipping from his glass like none of this concerned him. "It's better this way," he muttered. "You're single. You'll bounce back." I looked at the walls I had painted myself, the curtains I had picked, the furniture I had ordered piece by piece. I felt like I was watching my own life being auctioned off. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. My mother rolled her eyes. "Amber, don't be so sensitive. You're a smart woman. You'll learn it back in no time. Travis needs this more than you do." I turned to Jenna, whose eyes were wide with disbelief. I could see her shaking her head. She knew what I knew. This wasn't just wrong. It was theft. I left the room, trying to hide the tears burning behind my eyes. I went to the guest bedroom, now apparently Megan and Travis's future nursery, and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands trembled in my lap. Every single dollar I had saved, every hour I had worked, all of it had just been erased. And what hurt more than anything else was that the people I had loved and trusted most had done it to me. Not strangers. Not con artists. My family. I don't know how long I sat on that bed, staring at nothing. The voices from the living room felt far away, like I was underwater. My body was in the house, but my mind was somewhere else, stuck in that moment when my mother looked me in the eye and told me I should be proud of giving my house to Travis. Proud. Like this theft was some kind of honor. Like I was the lucky one for being robbed. Eventually, I stood up and splashed water on my face in the hallway bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I had always prided myself on staying calm, staying logical. Numbers made sense to me. Emotions didn't. But right now, logic wasn't enough to hold me together. As I walked back toward the kitchen, Jenna met me in the hallway, her face tight with concern. "Amber," she whispered, "this isn't okay. This isn't legal." "I know," I said quietly. I need to think." She nodded and handed me a glass of water. "Justin's on his way," she added. "Talk to him. This smells like fraud." That word stuck in my brain, fraud. It didn't seem real. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. They must have transferred the deed without my full consent, maybe even forged something. I had signed an agreement during closing, But we hadn't finished recording the final title yet because they claimed they were waiting on some paperwork from Steven's bank. I had trusted them. That was my mistake. Travis passed by us again, this time laughing with one of his old friends from high school. "Yeah, we're probably going to take out that wall," he said, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Make it an open-concept space." I felt sick. Every inch of this house I had dreamed of, planned for, paid for. And now he was casually discussing renovations like it had always belonged to him. I glanced up at the fridge and saw something that made my breath catch. On top of it, barely peeking out from under a pile of magazines, was the original folder my mother and I had used when reviewing the purchase documents. The one where we kept the agreement I had signed. My hands moved before I could think. While everyone was distracted by Travis's homeownership fantasy, I reached up, slid the folder into my bag, and told Jenna I needed some air. I stepped out to the back porch and sat down on the wooden bench I had placed just 2 days earlier. The cushions were still stiff from being new. I opened the folder with shaking hands and flipped through it. There it was, the original written agreement. The down payment had come from my account, and the ownership was to be under my name. My mother had even written, "We promise this house will always belong to Amber." Below that, both Vanessa and Steven had signed. But that wasn't all. There was another document, a letter from the lawyer they'd worked with, dated just 3 weeks ago. It warned that moving the deed to someone else's name without my signature could be considered fraudulent and legally punishable. My eyes scanned the paragraph again and again, each word a cold slap of truth. They had known. They had been warned. And they did it anyway. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Stop sulking outside. Come back in and be happy for your brother." That was it. No apology. No regret. Just another dismissal, as if I were an overdramatic child instead of the woman who had just been robbed of her entire adult life savings. I stared at the screen for a moment, then opened a new message to Justin. "Are you free tomorrow? I need legal help. It's urgent." His reply came within a minute. "Jenna told me what's going on. Come to my office at 10 a.m. Bring all the documents." I looked up at the sky above the backyard. The sun was starting to set, casting the porch in a soft orange light. For the first time in hours, I felt something stir inside me. Not sadness, not fear. Resolve. I stood up, walked back inside, and saw my mother, Steven, and Travis standing near the fireplace, laughing like this was the happiest day of their lives. I approached them slowly, my bag on my shoulder, and a calm smile on my face. Vanessa looked surprised. "Finally decided to stop being dramatic," she said, tilting her head. "Actually," I said evenly, "I want to thank you. You've helped me see things very clearly." They exchanged confused glances. They probably expected me to cry, to plead, maybe even beg. But I was done being the quiet, helpful daughter who always came second. I picked up my keys and walked to the front door. As I reached for the handle, Travis chuckled behind me. "See? She's fine. She'll get over it." I turned around and looked him in the eye. "No, Travis. I won't get over it. But you'll wish I had." And with that, I walked out. The next morning, I sat across from Justin in his law office, gripping a paper cup of coffee like it was the only thing holding me together. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying the look on my mother's face when she told me to be proud of giving up everything for my brother. But here, in this small, quiet room with its tidy bookshelves and sunlight filtering through the blinds, things finally felt real, and maybe, just maybe, fixable. Justin had spread the documents out on his desk. He read every line slowly, making notes, occasionally shaking his head or letting out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. He was thorough, and I was thankful for that because my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I watched his eyes move across the page, waiting for a verdict. After what felt like forever, he looked up at me. "Amber," he said calmly, holding up the letter from the family's lawyer, "they really messed up." He pointed to the warning paragraph, the part that clearly stated any transfer of ownership without my knowledge or consent would be considered fraudulent. "This isn't just shady," he continued. "It's fraud. Full on. You paid the down payment, The documents list you as the buyer, and this letter proves they were advised not to do what they did. That means they knew what they were doing was wrong. I nodded slowly, not surprised anymore, just exhausted. But they already did it, I said. The house is in Travis's name now. It's done. Justin leaned back slightly and gave me a confident smile. A fraudulent deed transfer can be undone. And, depending on how they did it, especially if they forged your signature, we could be looking at criminal charges. Theft, forgery, even conspiracy. The words hit me like thunder. Criminal charges. Against my own mother, my stepfather, my brother. People I had once trusted. People I had loved. I swallowed hard. I don't want to see them in prison, I said quietly, almost ashamed of how weak it sounded. Even after everything. Justin's tone softened, but not his conviction. Amber, they stole $200,000 from you. That's not just a bad decision. It's grand theft. And they're counting on your kindness. They think you'll be too emotional, too loyal, to do anything. But you don't have to destroy them to get justice. You just have to stand up for yourself. Do you want your house back? I closed my eyes for a second and took a long breath. The image of Travis smiling while discussing kitchen remodels came back to me. My mother rolling her eyes, telling me I'd earn it back. Stephen acting like none of it mattered. I opened my eyes and looked directly at Justin. Yes, I said firmly. I want my house back. And I want them to know they can't treat me like this anymore. Justin nodded, already pulling up legal forms on his computer. We'll file an emergency injunction to freeze any activity on the property. That'll stop them from selling or changing anything. Then we'll begin the process to reverse the transfer and pursue a settlement, or charges if necessary. As I left his office, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since the party, I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't even scared. I was clear. Steady. Like a woman who finally knew what she deserved, and was done asking for it nicely. I drove straight to the hospital for my evening shift. I hadn't even changed out of the clothes I wore to Justin's office, but I didn't care. I spent the evening focused, calm, efficient. Around 8 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Calls from Travis. Then from Vanessa. Then Stephen. I didn't answer. I didn't even read the texts. By midnight, I had over a dozen notifications, some angry, some panicked. The last one from Travis made me smile. What the hell did you do? I turned off my phone and went back to work. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the uncertainty, the fear, the chaos they thought only I deserved. Let them wonder what I was capable of. Because the truth was, I wasn't even close to done. Tomorrow, they would see exactly what happens when the quiet one finally stops staying quiet. I was just finishing my morning coffee the next day when Jenna called, her voice sharp with urgency. They're outside, she said. Your mom and Travis. In front of your building. Causing a scene. I walked over to my window and pushed the curtain aside. There they were, Vanessa pacing, her arms flailing as she spoke loudly into her phone, and Travis standing stiff with his arms crossed, his face flushed with agitation. My stomach didn't twist the way it once would have. No panic. No dread. Just a deep, tired exhale. I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked down the stairs. As soon as I opened the front door, Vanessa rushed toward me. Amber, you have to stop this, she said, her voice strained and theatrical. You're tearing this family apart. I looked her dead in the eye and replied, you didn't care about tearing the family apart when you handed my house over to Travis without telling me. Travis stepped forward, his face red and voice rising. This is ridiculous. I have a baby on the way. What were you even going to do with that house? Live in it alone with your cats. I didn't flinch. I calmly pulled my phone from my bag. Would you like to see the paperwork? The original agreement you both signed? Or maybe the letter from your lawyer that warned this transfer would be illegal. I also have a copy of the documents where someone forged my signature. Both of them fell silent. Vanessa's face paled. Travis blinked several times, processing what I had just said. My mother reached out and gently grabbed my arm, lowering her voice. Honey, we can fix this. As a family, there's no need to bring lawyers into it. I pulled my arm away. You stopped being my family the moment you decided my life savings didn't matter. She swallowed hard, tears filling her eyes, the same tears that had manipulated me for years. You'd send your own mother to jail? No, Mom, I said quietly. You might send yourself to jail. I'm just protecting what's mine. Before Travis could respond, his phone rang. He answered on speaker, without thinking. It was Megan. I could hear the panic in her voice. Travis, the police are at the house. They're asking questions about the deed transfer. They have documents and names. His expression shifted from arrogance to shock. What? He barked. Why are they there? I don't know. Megan cried. They said someone reported fraud. They're asking if I signed anything, but I didn't. I told them I had no idea about this. Travis ended the call without a word and stared at me. I watched as the confidence drained from his face. Vanessa's lips quivered. Amber, please, she whispered. I said nothing. Just stood there, calm and still. Finally, Travis turned and stormed off toward the car. Vanessa followed slowly, wiping her face. I didn't try to stop them. Jenna, who had been watching from her car across the street, came over and gave me a long, tight hug. I've never seen you stand up to them like that, she whispered. I've never had proof before, I said. It was always just my word against theirs. But not this time. Later that day, Justin called. We've got a response, he said. Their lawyer reached out. They want to settle. I sat down at my kitchen table, heart thudding. What are they offering? They're agreeing to transfer the house back to you, pay all your legal fees, and an additional $80,000 in damages. But I told them that wasn't enough unless we also get a written, notarized statement admitting what they did. I smiled. Yes, I want that statement. I don't want them pretending this never happened. 3 weeks later, I sat across from them in Justin's office. The papers were laid out on the table, along with a formal confession letter. Vanessa cried the entire time. Steven stared at the floor. Travis looked like he hadn't slept in days. Emma had left him, and according to Jenna, she'd also filed for divorce after discovering Travis had opened credit cards in her name and lied about their finances. It turned out stealing the house was just one of many bad decisions. One by one, they signed. When it was my turn, my hand was steady. I signed and looked up at Travis as he muttered, I hope you're happy. I met his eyes. You ruined everything when you chose to steal from me. I just fixed it. They left without another word. Then I turned to Justin and smiled. One more thing, I said, pulling out another folder. I'm selling the house. He blinked. Are you sure? Completely. I already have an offer. From a developer who wants to turn it into apartments. It's well above market value. Justin let out a low whistle. They're going to be furious. I know, I said. That's exactly why I'm doing it. So they never forget they don't own me. Not anymore. The sale went through faster than I expected. The developer was eager to close the deal, and within a week, I had signed the papers. The house that once symbolized betrayal and loss had now become my liberation, and a source of unexpected profit. Between the sale and the settlement, I had more than enough to start fresh. I didn't tell anyone in my family until it was done. The shock, I imagined, would be its own form of justice. I found a beautiful little cottage on the outskirts of Greenville. White picket fence, wraparound porch, and enough yard space for the garden I'd always dreamed of, but never allowed myself to start. The day I got the keys, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and let the silence sink in. This wasn't a home built on obligation or manipulation. This one was mine, earned, chosen, and protected. Jenna helped me move in. We painted the walls soft sage and warm cream, colors I loved, not ones my mother would have called too dull. We hung fairy lights across the porch and drank wine in mismatched mugs. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was rebuilding from a loss. I felt like I was finally building something just for me. Not long after I moved in, I got a promotion at work, senior financial consultant. It came with better hours, a solid raise, and a new office with a window that overlooked downtown. My manager told me they had noticed a change in me. You walk like someone who knows her worth, he said. I smiled and thanked him. He didn't know the full story, but I did. Emma reached out a few weeks later. She had filed for divorce and moved into a small apartment with her baby. I didn't know what Travis had done, she told me over coffee. He lied about everything. He even maxed out a credit card in my name. I only found out after the police showed up. She didn't ask for money. She just needed help navigating her financial mess. I gave her Justin's contact information and helped her sort through some of the credit damage. I didn't do it out of pity. I did it because she was a victim too, just like I had been. And unlike the others, she never once tried to justify what he'd done. I started planting my garden that spring. Tomatoes, cucumbers, violets, my favorite flowers. The sun felt different in this new space. Brighter. Softer. Like the world was finally letting me breathe. Every day, I came home and watered the soil, pulled weeds, and watched tiny green shoots rise from the dirt. It felt like more than a garden. It felt like proof that something good could grow after everything else had fallen apart. I began making new friends in the neighborhood. There was a weekly book club I joined, hosted by a retired schoolteacher named Louise. I hadn't read for pleasure in years, but something about sitting on porches with wine and talking about fiction made me feel human again. I even started dating a quiet, kind man named Marcus who owned a small art shop downtown. We took things slow, just dinners and long walks, but I liked that. I liked not having to explain myself. My phone still lit up with texts from Vanessa. Some polite, some guilt-ridden, some angry. She'd heard I had sold the house and was furious. Said I had no right. That I should have offered it back to the family. That I was heartless. I didn't respond. I had learned that no response was also a response. Aunt Helen remained the only family member who stood by me. She came by often, bringing her grandkids, who loved helping me water the plants and pick tomatoes. I saw your mom at the grocery store, she told me once over brunch. She's telling people you betrayed the family, but people know the truth. That statement she signed? It's been passed around. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. Instead, I sipped my coffee and looked out at the garden. The violets were blooming, delicate and purple and perfect. I hadn't just rebuilt. I had grown. And this time, no one was going to take it away from me. It had been almost a year since I walked out of that house on Miami Street, and yet, some days it still felt like yesterday. Not because the pain lingered, but because the contrast was so clear now. That version of me, the one who accepted every dismissal, who handed over her life savings for the hope of being appreciated, she didn't exist anymore. The woman who lived in this cottage knew her worth. She didn't beg to be seen. She didn't stay quiet just to keep the peace. Spring had settled into Greenville with soft winds and golden afternoons. My garden was in full bloom. The tomato vines had thickened, the cucumbers were sprouting, and the violets spread across the yard like velvet. I found myself smiling more, sleeping better, and walking with a calm that came from knowing I had chosen my life, not had it chosen for me. Then one Thursday morning, I was trimming the edges of the garden bed when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I wiped the dirt from my hands and turned toward the fence. It was my mother. She stepped out slowly, her expression tight, her posture slightly hunched. She looked older, tired in a way that went beyond years. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hair, once carefully styled, now hung limp. She hadn't called. Of course not. She probably hoped to catch me off guard. I didn't move from where I stood. You shouldn't come here without calling, I said plainly. She gave a weak smile and stepped closer to the fence. Your garden is beautiful, she said. You always had a talent for this. Even as a kid. I nodded once, not offering more. She fidgeted with her purse strap. I wanted to talk. Just for a moment. Your father and I were selling the house. We can't afford it anymore. James' expenses, she trailed off, waiting for my reaction. I looked at her calmly. I'm not giving you money, Mom. That chapter is closed. Her shoulders fell. I wasn't going to ask, she began, then hesitated. Okay, maybe I was. But can you blame me for hoping? You're doing so well, and we're your family. Family doesn't steal, I replied, voice still gentle but unwavering. Family doesn't fake signatures. Family doesn't throw one child away to support another. She blinked, as if my words slapped her. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice cracking. We were just trying to help Travis get a fresh start. And what about me? I asked. Did I not deserve one? I gave up everything for you. And you took more. And when you got caught, you played the victim. She looked away, her chin trembling. I've lost everything, Amber. I didn't say anything. I simply picked up my gloves from the garden bench and slid them on again. That's because of your choices, not mine. She stood there for a few seconds longer, then finally turned back toward her car. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't ask for a hug. She just left. That evening, I invited Jenna, Aunt Helen, and a few coworkers over for dinner on the porch. We lit candles, passed around wine, and ate fresh pasta with tomatoes from the garden. Laughter filled the air like music. At one point, I looked around the table and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the food. This was family. This was real. Not the people who shared my blood, but the ones who had chosen to stand beside me. To boundaries, Jenna said, raising her glass with a smile. To growth, I replied, glancing at the garden, and knowing I was part of it now. A full year had passed since I took my life back. And every morning when I opened the windows of my cottage and let the breeze sweep through the rooms, I felt a quiet kind of joy that used to feel out of reach. My days were calm, my nights were peaceful, and my heart no longer carried the weight of trying to prove my worth to people who never truly saw me. This home wasn't just a shelter. It was a reflection of who I had become. By now, the garden was bursting with life. I had so many vegetables, I started giving extras to the local food bank. A few neighbors stopped by regularly, some to admire the flowers, others to bring jam or homemade pies in exchange for fresh herbs. One elderly couple even asked if I'd help them start a small garden of their own. I said yes. Of course I did. This was the life I had earned. Not through inheritance, but through hard work, hard choices, and learning how to say no. At work, things had shifted too. My new title came with new respect. People came to me for advice, not just about numbers, but about boundaries, balance, and resilience. A young analyst named Sarah once sat in my office with tears in her eyes after a bad meeting with her supervisor. I heard what happened to you, she said softly. If you can stand up to your whole family, maybe I can stand up to one man. I gave her the same advice I had once given myself. You don't have to be angry to be firm. You just have to be clear. And you don't need their permission to protect your peace. She smiled through her tears. A week later, she transferred to a better department, and her confidence soared. Moments like that reminded me that the pain I went through hadn't been wasted. It had become a seed, one that grew strength in others. Vanessa still sent messages now and then, sometimes pretending nothing had happened, sometimes begging. But every time, I responded with the same calm words, I'm not in a position to help. That sentence had become my shield. Simple, respectful, and unbreakable. Travis was working at an electronics store downtown. I passed by once and saw him standing behind the counter, wearing a name tag and looking 10 years older. Megan had full custody of the baby now, and I sometimes saw her in town. She looked tired but lighter, freer. Once, she even dropped off a thank you card, saying Justin had helped her get out of debt and rebuild. I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't stepped in, she wrote. You saved more than just yourself. One afternoon, while organizing my bookshelf, I came across an old photo tucked into a novel. It was from the housewarming party, the last moment before everything fell apart. In it, I was smiling.
So were they.
I stared at it for a long while, and then I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I felt grateful, because if they hadn't betrayed me, I might never have learned how strong I really was. That evening, I sat on my porch with Jenna, sipping iced tea and watching the fireflies drift through the warm twilight. The garden glowed under the soft porch lights. The breeze smelled like violets and fresh basil. I still think you should write a book, she joked, nudging me. About what? I asked with a laugh. How to stop being a doormat in 4 easy steps. I grinned. Step 1, lose everything. Step 2, stop asking for permission. She raised her glass. To never being the quiet one again. I clinked mine against hers. To choosing myself every single time. And as the stars came out and the night settled in, I knew deep down that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I had fought for it. Because I had planted new roots. And now, they were finally growing. Thank you for watching this powerful story of strength, betrayal, and self-worth. If this story moved you or gave you something to think about, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy emotional, life-changing stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new one. Your support means everything.